Hi everyone, my name's Dr. Matt Williams. I'm a tutor in politics and what is known as the Access Fellow here at Jesus College at the University of Oxford. It is January, so it's that time of year when we start sending out our decisions on who is going to be admitted to the university for undergraduate degrees. And as I was rejected by Cambridge University at the age of 17, I always like at this time of year to send a message out on YouTube to lots of people who might experience that feeling of rejection to hopefully make them feel a little bit better about it. And I've got 5 things that I'd like you to remember if you do receive a decision that is not to your liking in the next few weeks. So the first thing to remember is actually, it's probably best not to call it rejection. So we quite commonly describe this as being an Oxbridge reject or a feeling of rejection. But rejection is a feeling, it's an emotion. And I think a more accurate way of describing what happens is that someone is not offered a place. The reason I think we should quibble on the semantics here is because being rejected makes it overly personal. It makes it feel like you've been singled out and targeted because there's something the matter with you. But that's not how we conceive it as tutors. So when I'm involved in Oxford admissions, I don't sort of think, right, we must not take this person. It's more that we've got these spaces available. We can't expand the number of places. We're limited. So we've got this limited resource. We can give it to these people. Sadly, there's lots of people we can't give it to. But it's not that we're singling out people to be rejects. So you might feel rejected, but I think it's better not to describe actually what happens as a rejection. It's probably more healthy to think of it as just not being offered a place. And that leads to the second thing to recall, which is that not being offered a place is the norm. You're not going to be alone in that. Over 80% of people will not be offered a place at Oxford or Cambridge. And so you'll be in good company. And indeed, I'm not alone as being a tutor at Oxford who was rejected by Cambridge or Oxford. Many of my colleagues went through a similar process, and many more didn't even study or apply to Oxford or Cambridge when they were young people. And so when we as tutors are making the decisions on who to offer and who not to offer places to, what we're not doing is thinking that we have this extraordinary power over the direction of someone's life. What we think is that anyone who's competitive enough to be even involved in this process is likely, very likely, to succeed regardless of what we decide. So we don't see it as a sort of incredibly important decision in the course of your lives, because it's not. If you are coming to apply to us, you are already an incredibly capable, successful human being, and our decision won't change that at all. So again, don't sort of think that because you were involved in the process but didn't get an offer that you're somehow not a competitive, not a capable individual, because again, that's just not accurate. The third thing that's important to remember is that applying to Oxford and Cambridge is sometimes described as a bit of a lottery. I think sometimes people console themselves by saying, well, it's all luck of the draw, and if I didn't get in, that was just because I was unlucky. I think you need to be slightly careful with that. What I would say is that it does come down to tiny, tiny marginal differences, many of which will be beyond your direct control. So aspects of the admissions process, questions that might have come up at interview, questions that came up in admissions tests and so on. Tiny little differences which can build up to you not being offered a place. What it isn't is a complete lottery in the sense that we just roll a dice and we decide who to take on that basis. I think sometimes it can be tempting to say that the system is at fault, but actually we invest a lot of time and effort to make sure we make the right decisions. It's been estimated that we spend about 20 person hours on every application, so it's taken very seriously. So I wouldn't suggest that you go away and say, well, the system's to blame for me not getting in, but nor do I think it's right for you to blame yourself. And it does come down to tiny, tiny differences usually, but it's not straightforwardly just a lottery. Okay? I think the fourth thing to bear in mind is that not being offered a place doesn't end your relationship with the University of Oxford or Cambridge. It's not like we put a mark against your name and say, well, if this person ever tries to apply again or ever wants to engage with us, we will, not allow them to do so. No, not at all. You can reapply should you wish to. You can reapply as a postgraduate student should you wish to. You can get involved with the Universities of Oxford and Cambridge in all of the other manifold ways that we engage with the public. And we'd love you to do so, right? We're not trying to say, don't ever, darken our doorstep again. Quite the contrary. We don't want to end any relationship with anyone who's been involved in an admissions process. So please don't sort of think that we somehow will single you out and not want to talk to you ever again. And then finally, the fifth thing to remember is that one thing I realised when I was rejected by Cambridge is that the setback was really good for me. I went on to the University of Bristol, and sure, I guess I had something to prove. I felt like, well, I'm going to show that they may have made a mistake, I think. And so I maybe put a bit more effort in. But more sort of philosophically, setbacks are good for you. Imagine a person who never has anyone say no to them ever in their life. They would have quite a maladjusted sense of their own destiny, wouldn't they? They would not necessarily have a sense of how to succeed, and those successes that they might have wouldn't feel as sweet as if they had occasionally experienced some setbacks. I think what can be particularly painful about an Oxford or Cambridge rejection is that it might be the first time that someone is not offered something fairly significant in their lives, and so they take it quite badly. But I'm afraid as you progress more into adulthood, you'll find that people will have to turn you down for various opportunities, such as jobs, on a relatively regular basis. But each time that happens, you take something from that experience. You learn something new, you find something about yourself, and indeed that thing you were applying for might not have been right for you, and that's why someone didn't offer it to you. It's not that you are an awful human being or totally incapable or incompetent. It's just that it wasn't at that time right for you. So I think go into these sorts of opportunities not with a sense of dread and foreboding that I might be rejected, I might fail, but go into it sort of saying, well, if I do get a setback, great, because I'll learn from it. I'll take something from it that's really positive. Anyway, there's my 5 things that I hope you take away from the process of applying to Oxford or Cambridge. Don't think of yourself as a reject. The universities won't see you in those terms. Think of it much more sort of positively as, on this occasion, for reasons beyond my control, they weren't able to offer me a place, but it doesn't matter. I had the guts to go for it. I had the guts to try. I was competitive enough to be involved in a process that less than 1% of the United Kingdom's population will ever take part in. So I hope that helps, but let me know in the comments if you've got any questions or anything you want to discuss. And yeah, I'll see you next time. Thanks, bye. Bye.